In this video, I'm gonna give you 4 things that you need to start your journey with movement, and more specifically with floor-based movement. What's up guys, this is Vincent Vis and this is a channel for the Floorwork Academy. Floorwork, if you're not sure, is the art of moving with efficiency to, from and across the floor. Now, yesterday I received a question from Elaine. Elaine is willing to start animal flow or primal movement, but like many people, just like you, she's not quite sure of where to start. This is something I had been wanting to talk about for a long time, so here we go. Today, I'm gonna give you the 4 things you need to start your movement journey on the right foot. First, finding your true love. The most confusing part about this whole movement thing is that there are literally dozens of brands, labels, methods, protocols, instructors, styles. To help you, I'm gonna list now the major types of ground-based movement that you can find, and hopefully this will give you the clarity you need to find the right fit for you. But before we do that, you have to understand one thing. Yes, there are essential and sometimes a bit more subtle differences between these different practices that we are going to talk about. But on top of that sits a layer of bull. Because different people like to use different words to talk about the very same thing. This makes the whole lot much more complicated than it needs to be. And that's especially true for a beginner. Now, let's begin the list. First, we have animal flow. Animal flow is a fitness-oriented practice that borrows elements from different universes, just like capoeira, and put them inside a small syllabus out of which you can create bodyweight workouts. Animal flow is sometimes confused with primal movement. Primal movement is about, I quote, reconnecting your body with the ways it was designed to move. Primal movement belongs to that big family of practices that we sometimes call functional movement or natural movement. The premise here is that the more you perform the movement patterns that evolution has shaped our bodies to do, the more you will thrive. Especially since in this modern age of ours, we all became these fat, lazy bastards sitting all day long watching Netflix. These movement patterns involve a lot of sprinting, crouching, crawling, climbing trees, swimming, fighting, anything that you can picture our ancestors doing all day long. And if you ask me, I don't think that they had the time to perform handstands. Flow work is usually associated to the word of dance, and more specifically modern, contemporary, pole, and even breakdance. The exact content of what flow work is therefore going to vary depending on where it stems from. For me, flow work is just a word that is all-encompassing. It is basically what you do when you move on the floor, regardless of what you do and how you do it. It is the bigger box that connects all these practices together. As soon as you are moving across the floor for the sake of moving on the floor, you are doing floor work. Now, acrodance and danced acrobatics. Acrodance merges together flow work or elements of flow work with the powerful and well-structured way of teaching tumbling and acrobatics from circus. It is getting more and more prominent within circus schools nowadays. The style, the looks of it is quite neat, quite explosive, quite streamlined. Movement. Movement. Do you remember the days where movement didn't mean falling sticks and gymnastic rings and juggling with tennis balls? Yeah, me neither. Arguably, movement became a thing when Uncle Edo brought it to the public a few years ago. Movement brings together different movement practices. And this is where things start to be confusing, right? It advocates for a generalist approach. And the premise here is to make you a more well-rounded jack of all trades. Okay, so when it comes to ground-based movement with a big M, the movement culture had 2 babies, locomotion and very recently ground swimming, which is the same thing if you were not aware. Guess what? These 2 are about moving with efficiency across the floor. Do you see a common thread here? Okay, here is one that's not receiving the attention it deserves. Floreio is a component of capoeira, this Brazilian form of dance martial art. And because capoeira is not just about doing fancy eye-pleasing movements, they coined a word just for that, floreio. Capoeira itself is a mix of many different influences, including martial arts And it's a very interesting story for that matter. And if you want to learn more about it, I would recommend you read this book from Nestor Capoeira. Basically, before you start confusing Floreio with what Ido made out of it, Floreio existed way before you and I were born. In the last category of movements, I'm gonna bring together expressive dance, the 5 rhythms, mindful movement. And although I'm oversimplifying, think of these as being more about expressing what's inside rather than how you're doing things and what you're doing exactly. So that list gives you a basic idea of what you can find out there. And yes, there is more to be found, in part because people like to put different names on the same thing. And confession time, I too fell in that trap when I began. I was really into Floorwork and Floreio, so I tried to put them together, create a name, coin a name out of it, which became Floreio, which I know sucked absolutely. I realized a bit later, and that's the voice of wisdom speaking, that the name of the box in which you grow as a mover doesn't matter as much as what's inside. However, when you begin your journey, which is what this video is about, it is important to know what box you are choosing and what it entails. Understand as well that the focal point of each of the movement practices that we talked about is different. Some are fitness oriented, others are skill and technique oriented, others again are performative by nature, and as we were saying, a few of them are more about expressing yourself. Of course, most of them tick all these boxes, but with different ratios. Primal flow, for instance, is about remembering the ape you are. Animal flow is about dropping a sweat. Acro dance is not about dropping a sweat, but trust me, you will be sore for days if you try a class of that. Ask yourself, what's the meta goal you're trying to achieve, and then start from there. My suggestion is that you pick one that is accessible to you, whose teaching you seem to resonate with, and which seems to have the potential to make you become the mover you want to become. Okay, once you have found what you like, if you are like 80% of people, you won't find any class that teaches that near where you live. Because there isn't, or because the poor studio went bankrupt because of the Rona. Basically Murphy's Law. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna start learning by yourself, and you're gonna get inspiration from YouTube, from a class here and there, maybe from a couple of workshops and a retreat, but eventually you will have to think about your movement training by yourself. And this can be daunting, you don't quite know where to go.
But son, let me give you a good piece of advice.
Yes?
When you begin, you want to alternate between a regimented approach and a more free flow approach. A regimented form of training would be one where you count sets, volume, reps, and rest. And a free flow form of training would be something where you're a bit more curious and you explore what your body can do without the same expectations. Some of the fitness practices will swing the pendulum too hard towards one extreme, while the more expressive forms of dance, let's say, will bring exclusively their attention on flowing and creativity. As you begin your journey, you want to make some time for both. If you want to achieve a specific technique or hard skill, there is no way you can skip the reps. But in that case, try to leave some time for creativity, for exploration. This will keep the doors open for when you grow as a mover and make you more well-rounded down the line. To which you may ask, okay, but how much time do I actually dedicate to each? To answer that question, let's borrow a concept from Uncle Nasib, which is called the barbell analogy. Let's say that you have picked a technique-focused practice from the list that we have created together, such as Locomotion or Floorwork. In these practices, the focal point is more on the precision of execution. Because this is your main goal, you want to dedicate most of your training time to it. Because you know that technique doesn't come in just one afternoon, right? So now picture a barbell that would be unevenly loaded, and you have loads of plates on one side, there are very few plates on the other side. The heavy side of your barbell is the one that ensures that you are not derailing from the path that you should be on, from the goals that you have set for yourself. It will ground you and remind you of the things you have to do to get where you want to be. It's a way to make sure that you are not scattering your attention and that you are not falling for the next shiny object, the next new protocol and whatnot. The other side of the barbell, therefore, is the 20% of our training time that we want to dedicate to something else, that we want to dedicate to approach what we do from a different angle or through different modalities. Third tip, you want to start writing down the moves you learn, and that's super important. Learning a new movement practice is very similar to learning a new language. I'm a former linguist myself, so I make a lot of analogies and comparison between the way we learn new words and the way we learn movements. My advice for you is to start with a little notepad in which you're gonna start writing the moves that you like and that you learn, because you can't trust your memory to the extent you think you can. It's the exact same thing that happened with the Spanish classes you had in high school, from which you don't remember much. You will forget the moves that you learn. And so having this notepad will allow you to bring back to your usable memory the things that you learn month after month, so that you have a never-expanding database of movements that you can play, create, sequence, or flow with. So first you have to find a name. If the teacher or the class didn't give you any name, you want to create a name that is memorable, and usually when it's silly, it's memorable. So you want to pick the name that you know you will remember. Then, that's super important, you want to make sure that you specify the position from which the movement starts and the position in which the movement ends. This will teach you how to codify and decipher movements. Slowly, you will start seeing better and better, with more and more precision, the different movements that compose a sequence, a phrase, a flow. You will start hearing the words within the sentences. Last advice for today, you want to improve your inputs if you want to maximize your output. But before we jump there, if you like this content, please leave me a thumb up below. This really helps me into knowing what kind of content you would like me to produce. And if you don't want to miss any of the videos and tutorials I release, make sure that you click on subscribe. So chances are there is no movement class close to where you live, or it may not be available right now. 2020 has been a kick in the butt, but the good thing is that there are now plenty of courses and classes to choose from, and that allows you to start training in the park, in your living room, or in your studio. And what I'm trying to say is that selecting your inputs based on its relevance and its quality will necessarily impact who you become as a mover, and therefore there is value in taking 2 seconds to assess where you're going to invest your time and your money. You basically have 3 options. First, the follow-along classes. A follow-along class is designed as if the laptop was the student. The teacher talks to the camera, and that's perfect when you want to take a break from what you usually do, and that's also perfect when you want to dip your toes into a new practice to just taste the flavor of it. But when it comes to really progressing or going deep, this won't cut it. It's great to maintain your skills, not so much to get new skills. Then you have courses, and courses are a series of video tutorials that you are meant to digest in your own time, from the comfort of your studio or your home. This solves the problem of progression that we had with online classes. The course necessarily is structured around a progressive curriculum, and when they're well designed, they will go in more depth. If you had a course about drawing, let's say, it wouldn't be just about teaching you how to draw a dog. It would be about teaching you the concepts that would allow you eventually to draw any animal. The challenge with courses is that they require a lot of self-discipline, and because we're just overwhelmed with information and we're not disciplined in the way we digest content. And on top of that, courses are not meant to be followed along. The tutorials are designed to explain what you should do and how you should do it properly and why you should do it, but they won't take you by the hand, and therefore you have to have your brain on. This is a more active form of learning, and that's why it's also a deeper form of learning. One of the other challenges is that we still don't have any feedback. To me, courses suit a very specific profile of people who are very disciplined, who already have a strong practice, and that can rely on themselves to set away some time every week to go through the course, assess their own mistakes, assess their progress, and program for themselves. Let's call them independent movers. Oh, and by the way, I don't have anything against anyone. I do classes, courses, and online coaching. I'm just saying they answer different needs. And so lastly, we have the infamous online coaching. Online coaching revolves around the idea of receiving feedback and ideally receiving a tailored program, a program which has been designed according to what you can do, to your schedule and or to your goals. It also requires more time commitment because you have to train more. Most of the times you have to take the time to watch the feedback that's being sent to you, You usually have to take the time to record yourself and send the footage, and usually it's a bit more expensive as well. Also, online coaching is not online coaching. Some people will call online coaching a generic template they send to every student, which is a bit of a shame. Others will go on a call with you, others will provide you with a group form of coaching and Q&As, and some will go the extra mile. So in my opinion, this suits people who have at least 3 to 4 hours every week to dedicate to their practice and who know that they can benefit from the feedback and that want the interaction with the coach to make sure that their technique is on point, to make sure that they are on the fastest road towards their goals. And that wraps up the 4 tips for today. Just like Elaine today, if you have any question, you can drop them in the comments and that may inspire my next video and I will try to answer you and get back to you. Now, if you are into floorwork or ground-based movement or locomotion, I have released a brand new coaching program called the Floorwork Teacher Training. The Floorwork Teacher Training is designed for movement instructors such as animal flow, fitness or yoga instructors who want to use floorwork within their teaching and improve their classes and their practice. But it's also designed for the curious mover who really wants to go in depth with floorwork, even if they have no intention to teach, but who want a structured curriculum with the coaching benefits we were talking about before. This is the most thorough, the most comprehensive training on floorwork available out there, period. Floorwork is the practice of moving with efficiency on the floor. You can call it flowing, you can call it acro dance, you can call it locomotion or ground swimming. At the end of the day, it's about moving to, from, and across the floor with efficiency. This teacher training has been divided into 4 levels, and the enrollment for the first level starts now. Floorwork Core Level 1 or FC1 includes 3 components that set it apart from anything you've seen before. First, an exclusive learning platform. Every week, you will find new lectures, training programs, classes, and resources to learn and to ensure gradual and consistent progress. The curriculum has been designed in such a way that even if you don't have any background, at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll be able to master every single move. To make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible, we also have an onboarding process. This allows me to get to know you personally, to get to know your schedule, to get to know your movement practice and your goals so that the modules themselves are customized depending on the group. We will also jump on a call to find out how we can integrate this learning process within your existing schedule to make sure that you have all the time in the world to absorb every one of these modules. And rest assured, if life happens and you have to take a break, we'll also have catching up systems in place. Everything is recorded and accessible for life. Even more importantly, I'm gonna include the very tools I use with my one-to-one online students to make sure that you progress week after week, that your technique is perfect and that no stone is left unturned. If you are an instructor and you want to widen your skills and include floorwork and locomotion within what you already teach, or if you are passionate about movements and you want to learn floorwork the right way, then this is a no-brainer, this is for you. Registrations are open now and the training will start at the end of the month.